My name is Emily and I'm 26 years old. I work hard at my job. I live with my husband, John. Lately, I've been thinking about having children soon. But John thinks we should first build our own house and settle down before having kids. So we're saving up money to buy a home. I really want to have children soon because it gets more challenging as we get older. But John is stubborn. Whenever I bring up having kids, he always says we need to focus on getting our own house first. He doesn't listen to my feelings on this. I sighed and thought I'd have to work extra hard to save money for our home. John and I have been married for a year. He rarely listens to my opinions, even when we were dating. He always pushes his own ideas. I used to think it was cute, but now that we're married, it's different. Respect for each other's opinions is crucial in a marriage. Another thing that bothers me is how often John visits his parents, who live just a short drive away. He goes there at least once a week, and sometimes I join him on weekends. When I asked why he goes so often, he says it's to save money on food and other expenses to help us buy our own home. But I found out he spends money on drinks with coworkers a few times a month. Cutting these expenses would really help us save more money. He keeps going to his parents' house to save money, even just for one meal. It really bothers me. He tells me to use less hot water when washing dishes and insists on turning off the lights early, even if he's not ready for bed yet. I'm surprised by how strict he is with saving money, especially when it only applies to me and not to himself. If he tried to control me the same way, I'd be upset. But he thinks it's fine to enforce his rules on me. Every week when we visit his parents, there's another issue. They keep asking when we'll have a baby. They say they want to see their grandchild soon. I also want a child, but John is the one who insists we buy a house first. It's not fair for my in-laws to pressure me like this. They should talk to John about it, since he's the one making the decision. I couldn't say anything, and my in-laws kept pressuring me about having a grandchild. After dinner, John said he was going out for a smoke and told me something strange. He said it seemed like I was working hard, but if I wanted to be a housewife, I should quit my job and focus on being a good wife. It felt like my in-laws were blaming me for not being able to handle household chores properly and implying that I couldn't have children because I work. I actually want children the most, but John isn't ready for that yet. They kept pressuring me to quit my job, saying it was embarrassing that my husband was making me work. Both John and I earn about the same amount, and I find my job rewarding. John was the one who encouraged me to work to save for our home. So why do my in-laws keep blaming me for it? I finally snapped and told them that John is the one who wanted me to work, and they should talk to him instead of constantly nagging me about it. When it comes to having children, I want them too, but John won't listen until we have our own home. Instead of blaming me, they should talk to their son honestly. My words shocked them, and I apologized before leaving the table. I was angry with John, who was casually smoking outside, so I got into the car without saying anything. He asked if I was leaving already, but I knew he would never tell his parents the truth. I'm tired of hearing various things from my in-laws. I told John clearly that I won't visit them anymore. He looked surprised and asked why. He said we could save on food expenses and that we both want a home and children soon. He's right about saving, but I've told him before that we'd save more if he cut back on drinking and smoking instead of just saving on one meal by visiting his parents. Everyone needs a break. Despite that, he keeps imposing rules on me, like using less hot water and turning off the lights early. He thinks we can save money without giving up anything. If I have to go through all this alone, then I don't need a home. I'm tired of never seeing him sacrifice anything himself, but expecting me to do it all. It seemed like he was dismissing my feelings until he realized how angry I was. He admitted that it is a big deal. He also pretends in front of his parents that he's cooperating on having children and blames me for not having grandchildren yet. This really made me angry. I'm tired of being the only one pressured about having kids. It's not me who doesn't want children, it's John. I've been saying for a long time that I want children soon. Seeing John unsure how to handle my anger gave me a slight sense of satisfaction. He's usually so confident and assertive, but now he seems unsure. As I continued to grapple with our issues, a turning point arrived unexpectedly about a month later. One of my relatives, my father's brother, passed away, and I attended the funeral with John. I learned that my late uncle owned several pieces of land, a luxurious mansion, and lived a lavish lifestyle. John, who had heard about this from someone else, remarked, "Impressive. I didn't know you had such a remarkable relative." A few days later, I received news about my uncle's inheritance. I invited the lawyer handling the inheritance to our apartment for a discussion over tea. Since this matter concerned only me and had nothing to do with John, I asked him to leave the room, as he seemed uneasy about the topic of inheritance. I wanted to avoid any potential trouble if he got involved. After about 3 hours of discussing the inheritance with the lawyer, I realized that John, who had been home earlier, was nowhere to be found. I assumed he had gone out to give me space during the conversation. I began preparing dinner, unaware of what he was secretly planning. 3 months later, John told me he had something to show me and took me for a drive. As we drove into a residential area, I wondered with excitement where we were heading. I was puzzled as John drove us into a residential area. I thought we might be going somewhere fun or for shopping. Ignoring my confusion, he told me to get out of the car and parked in front of a certain house. He pressed the intercom, and my father-in-law and mother-in-law came out from inside. However, this house clearly wasn't my in-laws' home. They greeted us and mentioned that they were planning to move into this house by the end of the month. My mother-in-law started making sarcastic remarks, blaming me for not having children and pushing all the responsibility onto John. I glared at John, wondering why he had brought me here after I had said I wouldn't visit my in-laws anymore. He shrugged and said that living together would help bridge the gap between me and his mom. He insisted that this would be our new home and that I should cooperate on the children issue. I couldn't accept this arrangement, especially since I had clearly stated that I wouldn't go to my in-laws' house anymore. I questioned why he decided this without even consulting me. He explained that it was a two-family house and that he always planned for us to live with his parents eventually. I was shocked. We didn't have enough savings to build a two-family house. Yet this newly built house looked splendid. John revealed that my dad and he had contributed the money, so our savings were depleted. I felt betrayed and confused by this sudden decision. It sounds like things became very tense between you and John. After learning about your uncle's inheritance, John seemed to believe that you had a significant amount of money coming your way, $690,000. He suggested using this money to pay for the two-family house. You rightly felt confused and upset that he assumed control over an inheritance that wasn't even yours yet. When you rejected their proposal, John grew frustrated and even took out a pre-filled divorce form, threatening divorce if you didn't agree to live together. In response, you took the divorce form from him and firmly accepted the idea of divorce, placing the form in your bag and leaving without looking back. You renounced the potential inheritance, surprising everyone with your decision. You headed home, filled out the divorce papers, and began preparing for the move. John later returned, unable to enter because you had locked the door. You asked him to stay at his parents' house for a few days, but he expressed surprise and refused to accept the divorce. It seems like you took decisive action in response to the pressure and manipulation you were facing. If you're feeling overwhelmed or unsure about what to do next, it might be helpful to reach out to someone you trust for support and guidance. It sounds like you and John went through a whirlwind of emotions and misunderstandings. John seemed to have misconstrued the situation about the inheritance and impulsively purchased the two-family house without fully understanding the details. When you explained that the inheritance wasn't as substantial as he thought and that renouncing it was a better decision, he seemed speechless. John expressed regret and frustration, realizing he had made a mistake. He mentioned that his mom had encouraged him to divorce you over the situation, but he admitted that she didn't fully understand the consequences. Despite his pleas to reconcile and live in the new house together, you had already submitted the divorce papers. It's clear that you've made a difficult decision based on the circumstances and your feelings of betrayal. If John continues to plead for reconciliation, it's important to stay true to your own feelings and what you believe is best for your future. Take time to reflect and seek support from trusted friends or family members as you navigate this challenging situation. He looked bewildered and lost, slumping in front of our apartment door after realizing that I had already submitted the divorce papers. While I felt he brought this situation upon himself, I couldn't have him lingering outside forever. I briefly considered sending him away, but I knew I had no time to waste, so I continued preparing for the move. After some time, he left, and I proceeded with the move, informing my workplace about the divorce, especially since my boss had acted as our mediator. I felt obligated to apologize for the divorce and also shared the news with my coworkers during lunch. Suddenly, he burst into my department in front of everyone, claiming it was absurd that I was talking about the divorce. I wished he hadn't mentioned it in front of my colleagues. His supervisor eventually took him away. He assumed that I had disclosed everything about the divorce, including the inheritance issue and our housing plans. This misunderstanding led to him being avoided by everyone. Recently, he quit his job. A male colleague confessed to me that he had liked me for a long time and hoped to build a home where we could communicate and work things out together.